Hi everybody, and as promised, here is the little special episode on how to make fermented foods. And what do you need to make fermented foods? Well, basically, you need something to ferment, and you need salt. And I use natural sea salt. So what we're gonna do today is we're gonna make sauerkraut. You need a bowl to mix up the sauerkraut in. You're gonna need perhaps a guide for your own fermented vegetables. And this is a great book right here, Fermented Vegetables, which I really like. But there's a stainless steel bowl, the book like you saw. I've got those measurement units to show you that I'm gonna use a tablespoon and a half of non-iodized sea salt. I have my cabbage, I have a couple of these little guys are not at all necessary. Okay, so one thing you want to do when you start this is you have these big leaves, of course, that's what cabbage have, or these leaves. And you want to hold on to at least a couple of these leaves. What I do when I cut my cabbage is I go right through the heart like that. And then I take this little heart out right here, and I taught, sometimes I'll eat that. Pretty good. Very sweet. But I don't know, maybe you can actually use that. I guess from my experience working in a restaurant for some time is we always just chuck that. So, anyway, pretty good. One of the things is I'll show you about how you've all had coleslaw before, right? So we're kind of looking for pieces about that thing, and basically it's like, well, how do you want your sauerkraut to be? I mean, how big? So, that's a good start. So I'm going to chop this, I'll just chop up this one half, and I'll do the other half off camera. I would stick with stainless, or I would stick with glass in everything you do. You can use food safe plastic, you can do that, but so, enough of my hand, it's like a puppet show. Okay, I've got, my cabbage is all chopped up. When you chop that up, think about how much surface area that you're allowing by chopping a little bit finer. So that's something to think about. But it's just all about exposure to salt and time. And speaking of salt, this is my tablespoon and a half of sea salt. And there we go, I'm putting that on. And as you probably know, one thing that happens, salt permeates cellular walls and it causes a breakdown. And that's what we're trying to do. We're gonna try to get some of the moisture out of this cabbage. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just going to, as you can see, massage this salt into the cabbage. And this is all there really is to it. I mean, this is probably the hardest work of the whole thing is right here. And you can also let time do some of the work. So what I do is I'm just going to massage this. And as I'm doing this, it's probably not coming through in the camera very well, but you can start to see that between the salt and my actually working with the cabbage itself, that I'm actually creating quite a bit of liquid here. There's a lot of liquid that's coming out of this cabbage, and that's what you want. You totally want that liquid, because that's it's going to be key to have that liquid for it to ferment its juices in, okay? So you can see that liquid's coming up. But what I'm going to do right now is I'll turn the camera off a little bit, and then I'm just going to let time do this. I'll probably come back in like 15 minutes and we'll see what has happened. Okay, you can see there's a little bit of moisture release. You can kind of see it glistening there, but I don't have any moisture in the bottom of the pan. Let's see what happens in about 15 minutes, okay? Hello, I'm back 15 minutes later. Okay, you can just see 15 minutes later what we have here. We have a lot of moisture that's been released. And you just can't help yourself. You're gonna have to do this a little bit more. Just a wee bit more, because actually it feels really good. And I mean, my gosh, look at how much moisture has been released there. I mean, it's incredible. Okay, I mean, incredible. All right, so here we go. here's the next step of this, is we're gonna pack a jar. And if we need to, I've got a spare jar standing in the back if I need more room. This is a pretty small head of cabbage, so I think I'm gonna be okay. I don't think I will need any more. I think I can get by with just one. So see, I packed it kind of loosely. You can see that right now. And one thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this baby right here, and it's just basically a kraut crusher, they call it. But you could use a block of wood, you could use a spoon, you could use a masher, you could use a shoe if it was small enough and you cleaned it really well. Anyway, so you do this, and look at that. So you smash all this down, and when you're doing that, you can see there's just more moisture coming out of that. And so that's what you want to do. Yeah, I'm going to totally be able to get by with just one jar. You want to leave, if you can, a little bit of head space at the top of these, like 1 to 2 inches, okay? And we'll smash this down. Smash, 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 smash. Okay, so you can see what we've got here. We've got pretty, like, well, maybe 2/3 full, and it's filling up with liquid so fast and I'm spilling it out. Okay, so now we've pretty much smashed that up as much as we could. The thing we have to do with this is we've got to make sure that this stays below the liquid level, this cabbage, because that brine that it's in, that saltwater brine, is going to be what creates sauerkraut out of it, what ferments your vegetables. So you always want to make sure that's underneath it. And that's achieved in a couple of ways. So one of the things, I don't know if you remember, but I had to save a couple of these cabbage leaves right there, if you recall that. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stick this cabbage leaf in there right on the top of this thing. And that's gonna push it down. You can see how it's pushing it down. You see that? So that pushes it down. And you go, well, okay, that's pretty good. It's got most of it covered. Here's one other thing you can do. And actually, at this point, with this one, you could take this jar just like this and set it off to the side. Just set it right off to the side and it would be fine. And in a couple of weeks, you'd have really good sauerkraut. Just put it someplace. It can't be too cool. Probably, I think between like 60 degrees and 75 degrees, you'd probably be okay. The warmer it is, the faster it goes. But I think if you really like, the flavor for me is better if you keep it a little bit cooler. But okay, so here's another way that you can actually keep that kraut down. You don't even really need a leaf for this, but I don't know. Because I am a little OCD, I kind of overdo things. So I take one of these bags, a bag like that, and I put water in it. And so that's gonna sit on top of that, and that's gonna help hold that brine down as well, or hold that cabbage down in the brine. So now, if you can see, here's what I have. I have a baggie on top of the big leaf. That's on top of the cabbage that's gonna turn into sauerkraut. So, that is really redundant. Now, if you want to be triple redundant, which I do because that's how I am, you take one of these jar lids, and this is just a fermentation lock basically, and I forget what the company's called, but it's online. If you look up like fermentation of vegetables on Amazon, this is gonna come up. And they're, I think they're like 20 bucks for 3 of these, so they're, a little expensive. And like I said, you don't need them. You can quit right here. But I have them, so I use them. And I put that on top. I just screw that on top. It goes right on top of a regular quart-sized mason jar like this. And put it aside for a couple weeks. Someplace out of the sunlight is best. That's kind of it. So here is this right here is, I think I featured this in the last running true, was my coleslaw that I made it was coleslaw basically that I turned into like sauerkraut. So The same thing we just did, but I put some onions in there and some carrots. And that's the beauty about the home fermentation is you can ferment fish. Our friend Laura Lee, she's kind of the one who really got me excited about home fermentation. And if you watch my Haiku Friday series, Rick is her husband, and we spent some time up there this summer, and oh my God, the stuff she has fermented is amazing. And last time I was up there, she'd actually did ferment a fish sauce, and oh, so good. But like I said, the stink is really there, although their place smelled good. But I have to say, I like having the ability to say, oh, excuse me, the way the house smells. I'm making some kimchi right now. Would you like to see the process? So, you know, it covers up. You have a really good excuse for your house smelling bad if it does smell bad. So anyway, so that's that. But you can see what I did was I took off this lid right here that was on there, like I said, which you don't need. I took out the bag. I sometimes leave that big leaf in there because it's really tastes good too. I mean, it's like a giant leaf of sauerkraut. So good. And then I put this lid on it, and that goes into a refrigerator or someplace cool, because you don't want this. What's going to happen is if you put a lid on this and it keeps fermenting, I mean, it's going to explode. There's no two ways about it. They have, in fact, my kimchi, you can go down and watch it when it's in its active stages, and it reminds me of making beer or wine or mead, because the stuff is just bubbling up. It's just blah, 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 blah on the side. So once you get it done, keep it cool and then eat it. And you just keep the process going. If you have like 3 mason jars, and you don't need a mason jar, look what I did. This is a jar that we're getting ready to throw out from work that had pickles in it, like pickles from Costco, which costs like really cheap, and you get free pickles out of the deal. And I made a fermentation lock out of it, like you know, like we do for beer and mead. And I basically put that fermentation lock on there. And again, not even necessary. I could have just put a cabbage leaf on top of it and kept everything down. Some of the stuff that you will ferment, like green peppers, things like that, when you chop them up, food process them, to keep them in the brine, you really do need a lot of weight. So that bag comes in handy for those. So anyway, that's it. When this is all done, put the lid, this regular lid on it, stick it in the refrigerator, and start eating. All right, thanks everybody, and I hope that helps. I basically bottled a new batch of kombucha this morning too. So if you're interested in that, I'd love to talk more about fermented foods. And if you want to know more, I'll make more of these. If not, this may be enough. Okay, happy fermenting.